If you've ever played Vampires Bloodlord Rising, you've probably found yourself stuck at some point, not quite understanding why you can't progress. The game is full of hidden mechanics, silent rules, and details that simply aren't explained on screen. Today, I'm going to show you 10 of those things. The game doesn't tell you which, if you don't know them, can seriously stall your progress. So stick with me, because I'm Matthew, and the video starts right now. This tip is gold because the game lets you stumble on your own. The core isn't just castle decor, it's practically your progression lifeline. If it runs out of blood, everything starts to stall without a decent warning. I learned the hard way. You're in that nice rhythm of exploring, crafting, and recruiting. And suddenly you realize a region won't unlock, or your expansion has stopped, and you start wondering if you missed some secret requirement. The truth is, the core needs to be fed at all times, and you can't be the primary supplier while trying to play the rest of the game. So the smart move is to act early. As soon as you create your first vampires, set aside at least 2 just for the role of keeping the heart beating, because the core needs blood inside to stay stabilized. It seems like a waste at first, but it's exactly the type of micromanagement that saves you from an hour of frustration later. And the detail that hits me most is how this changes your mindset. I stopped thinking I'll optimize combat and loot, and started thinking I'll secure blood infrastructure before dreaming of expansion. If you do this early on, the game flows. If you ignore it, you enter that limbo where nothing opens and you don't even know why. This tip is one of those that sounds like paranoid overkill until you die far away and realize the game charges you interest. If you don't set every mausoleum as a respawn point before exploring, a silly death turns into an endless walk back. And since teleporting is limited, you don't have that comfort of die and come back quickly. You feel the weight of every attempt. I like exploring on impulse. You know, I see a trail, a glow on the horizon, and I just go. But in Bloodlord Rising, this becomes a trap if you don't do the basics first, making sure that if things go wrong, you come back in the right place. The mausoleum becomes your anchor, and setting this up before heading out is the kind of habit that transforms exploration into fun rather than punishment. The point is, this measure isn't just about quality of life, it's about rhythm. When you die far away and respawn at the main base, you lose momentum, you lose the goal of the run, and often you even lose the will to keep pushing that area at that moment. It's very easy for the game to become a sequence of back and forths that add nothing and just drain your time. That's why I prioritize the mausoleum near the village in Hell's Chasm like it's a classic game checkpoint. Before I try anything fancy, I plant my respawn there, and only then start poking around the region. By doing this, you avoid wasted hours of forced travel and manage to maintain that good feeling of continuous progress, even when exploration goes south. This tip addresses a classic mistake. We see several open regions and think, I'll go to the one that looks coolest, but the game punishes you for not following an invisible order. When you unlock Hell's Chasm first, you unlock the kind of stuff that changes your life in the castle roof tiles and blood vessels, and suddenly everything that seemed like construction fluff becomes a real progression leap. I treat Hell's Chasm as that master key. The game doesn't hand you with a label, because what holds back your evolution isn't just damage and loot, it's infrastructure. A roof to expand what you can do at the base, and items that increase the core's capacity. If you go to other regions first, you might advance on the map, but you'll feel like your castle is lagging behind, as if you're trying to build an empire with stone tools. What's most annoying is precisely how poorly it's explained. You waste time farming resources and unlocking things that seem important, but when you go back to base, you realize the big upgrades don't fit. It feels like you're always one step behind what the game wants from you, and that breaks the rhythm, especially if you like playing more freely, improvising your path. Creating 3 vampires right at the beginning, rather than just 2, is exactly the kind of pacing shortcut that changes the feel of the entire game. The game suggests 2 and implies you're well served, but in practice, the third becomes that extra gear that moves the castle out of makeshift camp mode and into actual vampire operation mode. I like this approach because it embraces a truth the game doesn't explicitly tell you: an efficient servant is worth more than you trying to do everything yourself. While you're taking risks, exploring, and making decisions, your vampires are converting time into resources without the drama, and this speeds up both gathering and building. With 2, I always feel like I'm short-handed. With 3, it feels like the game finally matches the ambition it gives you. And the best part is that this doesn't lock you into your initial choices forever. You can and should wait for better candidates later, but that's a medium-term conversation. In the short term, what matters is not letting your base crawl. I'd rather have 3 okay ones working already than get stuck in silly perfectionism, saving on creation, and watching my progress turn into a task queue. In the end, this tip is about controlling the pace. 3 vampires early means less time carrying weight, less time staring at stalled construction, and more time playing what matters. It's the difference between feeling like you're reacting to the game and feeling like you're commanding your domain. If you want fast, frictionless progression, this third vampire is the initial push that makes everything click. Duplicating crafting stations might seem like a luxury, but in practice, it's the kind of decision that stops your castle from tripping over itself. I learned that when you have a single station for everything, the game becomes a traffic jam. You come back from exploring wanting to craft a specific item right now, and the bench is occupied with a long production run, your minions queued up without mercy. The way that works best for me is treating them as 2 production lines with different goals. One station stays reserved for minions to handle constant automatic production, the kind of thing that maintains stock and processes materials without you thinking much. The other station is for you, for high priority crafts, weapons, upgrades, consumables, anything that unlocks the next outing or solves an immediate problem. The result is that you stop making bad decisions just because the workbench is busy. You know when you think, since it's crafting that, I'll wait and do something else, and suddenly half an hour has passed and you've lost your exploration timing? By duplicating stations, you eliminate that friction and keep the game rhythm moving forward. Minions producing, you planning and executing. And there's a psychological detail I like. It gives you a sense of control. Instead of you serving the crafting queue, the queue serves your plan, and that fits the fantasy of being a vampire lord commanding a lair much better. If you want to avoid blocking essential crafts against your will to go hunting, duplicating stations is one of the cheapest upgrades in terms of stress you can make. Using planning mode for automatic construction is one of those turning points that makes Bloodlord Rising feel like a different game. I love it because the moment you realize you don't need to be glued to the base hammering walls, the game opens up space for you to enjoy the best part: exploring, hunting, fighting, and returning with resources while your lair builds itself. The catch is that the game doesn't make this obvious, so it's common to fall into a boring cycle. Go back to base, build manually, wait, adjust, go back to base again, and the rhythm dies. When you play in planning, the minions become your construction crew, and you become the brains and the fangs doing what only you can do out there. To me, this also shifts the feeling from work to dominance. Instead of feeling like I'm serving the castle, doing manual labor, I feel like the castle is serving me, growing while I impose my presence on the map. It's an efficiency that isn't just numerical, it's psychological, because you stop looking at construction as an obligation and start seeing it as a natural consequence of your progress. And the practical tip I take from this is, whenever you return with resources, immediately enter planning mode, set up a smart queue, essentials first, and head back out. You come back from a hunt, and the base has advanced without you being stuck there, which keeps the gameplay fluid and gives that constant feeling that everything is moving at once, exactly the way a vampire lord should play. This tip about using small pieces to rank up tiers quickly is very clever because it attacks the castle's hidden rule. It's not just about building something beautiful, it's about building enough to hit the piece count. When the next level asks for something like noble equals 100 pieces, baron equals 250, and so on, filling it with large pieces might give you a more imposing castle, but it will evolve slower than a humble castle full of small parts. Personally, I love when a game leaves room for this kind of anti-aesthetic strategy at the start. Because in the early game, I don't want to decorate. I want to unlock recipes early, get new workbenches, open up roof and wall options, production, and leave the magazine-worthy castle part for later. In this phase, the castle is a tool, not a showcase. The mistake I see and have made is thinking big piece equals big progress. So you start farming like crazy to place giant structures and get stuck in long resource loops. Meanwhile, the piece count rises slowly, tiers take forever to turn over, and it feels like the game is holding you back. When you switch your mindset to, I want piece counts, not monuments, progress kicks into gear. So here's what I do. First, I spam small pieces to hit the tier as soon as possible, unlock the recipes, and make the base economy stronger. Later, with better resources and more efficient routes, I gradually replace them with larger, nicer buildings without feeling like I'm wasting time. If you want a fast pace, this is the difference between playing in struggling architect mode and pragmatic vampire mode. This tip about extra coffins is the difference between recruiting an army and recruiting a headache. I've fallen for this. I got excited, brought in more vampires, thinking it would speed everything up, and out of nowhere, the base routine started failing because without a dedicated coffin, they don't rest properly during the day and simply stop performing when you need them most. The game gives you the sense that the bottleneck is just having more people, but the real bottleneck is infrastructure. A vampire without a coffin is like an employee without a bed on an infinite shift. They might try, but they soon enter that state of fatigue that breaks the flow, and then you're left wondering why tasks are moving in slow motion. Worst of all, this turns into a tedious management loop. You start micromanaging exhaustion, swapping who's doing what, going back to base to fix productivity, when in reality, it could have all been avoided with one simple step before recruitment: preparing spare coffins as a safety margin. For me, the right way to think is this: before bringing in more vampires, I secure their home, build extra coffins, get everything ready, and only then recruit, because then every new vampire arrives and immediately gets into the rhythm, without stalling tasks, without forcing you to put out fatigue, fires, and without that feeling that you recruited for nothing. Switching to the aristocrat form for long journeys is one of those things I wish I'd understood sooner, because it totally changes the cost of crossing the map. When you stay in hunter form for too long, you feel the blood draining away too fast, and suddenly a simple walk becomes a tedious countdown that forces you to deviate from your goal just to hunt. For me, the aristocrat form becomes economy mode. It's when I have a clear mission, get to a certain point, open a certain thing, fetch a certain resource, and I don't want the trip to charge me a toll in existence. It's funny how just this switch makes exploration lighter, because you stop playing with the fear of having low hunger in the middle of nowhere. The worst case scenario is when you ignore this and stay in hunter mode. You reach your destination already, squeezed, start a fight or a gathering, and suddenly realize you spent too much blood on the way. Then you enter that annoying cycle of hunting out of obligation, not choice. Or worse, risking too much and dying just because you underestimated how much the drain weakens you on the path. So I do it like this: long trip equals aristocrat, period. Hunter I leave for when I know I'm going to fight, farm, or do something that justifies the expense. This simple discipline keeps my pace high, cuts time lost with unnecessary hunting, and keeps the game feeling like I'm in control instead of I'm putting out hunger fires. Exploring and hunting only at night is the kind of rule that seems obvious on paper, but in practice, it's what separates a fluid campaign from a sequence of stupid deaths. In Vampires, Bloodlord Rising, the sun gives you no room to just finish this one task. It wipes you out in seconds if you're out of the coffin. So skipping the day by sleeping isn't a luxury, it's efficiency. I like to look at the day-night cycle as my vampire's work schedule. By day, I'm a castle manager, and by night, I'm a predator. If I try to mix things up, the game punishes me with the worst kind of time waste. Dying on the way, respawning far away, rushing back, and realizing the mistake wasn't the fight, it was being out at the wrong time. And there's another trap that annoys me because it's silent. When blood is low, you start losing health slowly, almost invisibly. Then you're walking, thinking everything is fine, and suddenly exploring and hunting only at night and using the coffin to skip the day is the rule that transforms Bloodlord Rising from a frustration simulator into a fluid game. The sun gives you no margin. If you insist on staying out of the coffin during the day, the punishment comes fast and feels disproportionate, the kind that makes you lose an entire run out of stubbornness. I play this game like a clock, with two halves. By day, I'm the lair manager. By night, I'm the predator. Day is for building, organizing inventory, starting crafting runs, delegating tasks to minions, and planning the next route. Night is for heading out with a clear goal, hunting, fighting, and returning loaded. When you respect this cycle, the map stops being an enemy and becomes a dark playground. And there's a silent malice there. When blood gets too low, you start taking a slow, almost invisible health drain, and that puts you in a spiral of mistakes. You think everything is under control, but you're weakening bit by bit. Then you get into a fight, miss a trade, or take too long on a trip, and you die in the silliest way possible, far from home, having to retrace your path and regain your rhythm. So, in practice, I recommend treating the coffin as a keep the game fun button. If the sun comes up, go back and sleep. If you need to do things during the day, do them inside the base or let automatic production and construction work for you. Ignoring this is literally paying with hours of your life, not because the game is hard, but because you're fighting against a basic rule of its world.
I just wanna stay bad, stay mad, chip on my shoulder cause they treat me like an outcast. I ain't gonna take that, stay back, I'll be swinging hard till the hits come in all caps.